The following video is a bit of an explanation from me about my thoughts on AI, how I got interested in it from a young age, and my thoughts and journey on creating projects and my relationship with it throughout the years. And it's also a bit of a technical demonstration of an autoencoder applied in real time to my webcam. This was in the context of a project where I was trying to compress many different data sources down when I was interested in trying to build some kind of online learning system. All right, hope you enjoy. When I was younger, I was always very interested in AI, and I don't mean CNNs or NLP, natural language processing. Most of those didn't exist at the time I was talking about. No BERT, no transformers, maybe a couple of people interested in machine learning because of the advancements of things like AlexNet and ImageNet, but that was still pretty niche. No, I was always into AGI, and not from the fantastical point of view, from Skynet and Skynet from Terminator, Ex Machina. No, I used to carry around notebooks in A-level and scribble thoughts down in my free periods. I used to think all the time and draw these flow diagrams of data from input to output and imagine how I would create self-learning systems and how they might look. And I can't pinpoint where this obsession began, but I always knew I was an introvert that liked to think about thinking and that liked to people watch and try and understand why people do the things they do, why we behave the way we behave, and why we're all so different. And at some point I think I realized that, you know, the human brain, maybe intelligence, was the hardest unsolved problem. At least that's how I felt, and I was thinking, that kind of caught my attention. Now we know that intelligence isn't really the hard problem. We've gone long ways with building intelligent systems, and you know, it seems sometimes that actually it's everything else around that that's difficult. But while no design that I ever made became big or famous or became a piece of research, I was too young to publish and didn't really have the capabilities to implement many of those ideas myself. It meant that I'd answered a lot of questions before they'd become mainstream, before they were sort of common today. And, you know, for an example, have you ever wondered what something actually means? Anything, an idea, what does it mean? Could you explain to me what an orange is, for example? And I mean it, like, take a second and imagine I was asking you that question seriously. I'm an alien, I'm a young child, and I'm saying, what is an orange? Right? Explain it to me. What is it? Think about it. I don't know what pops into your head first, but maybe you think it's colour, right? And I can show you the colour. Maybe you think it's a fruit. Let me grab you a fruit to show you, right? Maybe you go a little bit more abstract and you think it's all of the associations you make when you hear someone say orange. And now we're talking about a sound. We're talking about hearing orange like I've just said it to you, right? So I thought about how to represent concepts. An orange is an orange no matter what, but the image of an orange is different from the text of an orange, which is different from the concept of the colour and the concept of the fruit, but they all exist in the same space. And so I began to think you'll need embeddings for the concept, and then maybe lenses that you pass the embedding through, turn it into something concrete, turn it into a embedding of the image or the particular concept you're talking about, the text, the sound. And you know, I thought about how to make AI safe, because, you know, safe and to have people's best interests at heart. You know, it's one of those questions that people would always ask when I talked about this as an interest. People would say, well, how can you make sure that it will be safe? You know, how can you make sure it will have people's best interests at heart? And I always found that a bit of an odd question, because when someone like your friend or a close family member tells you that they're expecting, normally our first response is to congratulate them, not to ask them how they plan to ensure that this child is going to benefit humanity, or at least make sure they won't be a dictator in 30 years' time, right? Seems like a kind of bias to me. But it did make me think about these hypothetical questions, and it made me think about AI systems as babies, right? And that was always the obvious answer to me, at least I thought, was you kind of have faith that people that have children are gonna try and do their best to raise a decent child, and sometimes it doesn't always work out, right? But you kind of know that there's an effort that's being made there, and you trust that there's a process of taking someone fresh, someone new, someone impressionable, and that you can guide that person, and you can be there and reinforce them and help them through struggles and learning, and point things out to them so that they grow up to become someone well-rounded and empathetic and understanding. You know, we like to think that that happens to most people. We have a lot of faith, you know, that people do that. We trust almost everyone to be a parent, right? So I always thought that was quite interesting, that we would have to take that approach, and I now know that it's becoming one of the most commonly discussed forms of AI alignment. You know, we used to think, people used to say Asimov laws, you know, program that it can't hurt people, program this desire, program this goal. And I used to think, this is nuts. Like, you think that we're just going to be able to program XYZ into AI. Like, the whole point of AI and building systems like this is that, you know, it's not going to be a bunch of if statements, if this then that, you know, save the world, don't dislike anyone. Like, people don't even work that way, let alone trying to control some kind of system or force it to behave that way. And you're not going to get something that learns when you force it. So the natural learning aspect always seemed obvious to me, and I really think that kickstarted my interest in black box AI online learning systems. And online means that you're working with continuous data in real time, probably from some kind of sensor, like what you're seeing right now. It's not instances from a data set where we're trying to train a model with epochs. It's where we get something running and we build an AI that learns from what is running on screen. And from that point onwards, I became pretty obsessed with the idea of making AGI by interacting with a black box and eyes and ears only. Cameras, microphones. Could you train a system using that? That's what I started to think about. One of the cool things is I think I understand that when you look at this right now, right, it's not obvious that this sort of recreated webcam image is in any way impressive or interesting, but, you know, then you keep in mind that in this sort of autoencoder architecture, we're taking the real camera image, we're compressing it to a 64th of its original size, right? We're making it smaller. We're taking the width of the image and we're decreasing it by a factor of 8. We're taking the height and we're decreasing it by a factor of 8. And we're building this encoding down here, and then rescaling up from that, rebuilding the image. And I've got this rescaled image in the top right here, and that sort of shows you, if you were just to compress the image to scale it down and scale it up, what sort of quality you would expect. And then we have the recreated image here. And you can kind of see, you know, if you wanted to, which image would you rather have? And I think what I'm trying to highlight here is that this is a model where we're looking at real-time data and we're trying to extract the important bits, the features from the environment of this camera, so that we can represent them effectively and efficiently. Something I always found very fun with this is it tends to be black and white, grayscale, but then, you know, RGB. So you grab something blue, you grab something red, and it begins to try and pull these concepts apart, right? It begins to try and pull apart red, it tries to pull apart blue, and this is how I used to try and introduce colour to the system, shock it like this. Doesn't always work. Sometimes you take it away and it goes back to normal, but you see slight hues of blue, slight hues of red now, and you know, you kind of kickstart the process there. You shock the system, you give it something high contrast, and now it begins to learn that actually, oh, these two things exist. Now we start to see the reds coming in, we start to see the blues coming in over here, and over time this will get better.